Hello, we are in conversation with the Sanford School, a podcast from the T. Denny Sanford School of Social and Family Dynamics at Arizona State University, designed to showcase timely and informative insights from leading faculty, researchers, and other experts which impact the ever-changing social world we live in. Here at the Sanford School, we recognize that the lands where we are hosting this conversation at Arizona State University belong to the Maricopa and Pima peoples, and we are privileged that we can welcome you to today's conversation. In today's podcast, we're excited to be in conversation with our special guests to discuss some unique aspects of the military student, Salute to Service Month, and ASU's Pat Tillman Veterans Center. Our guest today is Jeff Guimarin, Director of ASU's Pat Tillman Veterans Center. Our host of today's podcast is Jennifer Brougham, instructor here in the School of Social and Family Dynamics. Jeff, welcome to the podcast, and take it away, Jennifer.
Thanks, John. Good morning, Jeff. It's always good to see you. And I think we're going to be talking about something very critical to the understanding for all of our students at Arizona State University. I just wanted to begin with a very brief history of how we came together to begin with. Originally, when I was developing the military family class, I worked with the ROTC. And during the ROTC, I had the pleasure of working with Lieutenant Colonel Mike Halleck, who was the commander of the Air Force ROTC, and Captain Steve Borden, who had brought the Navy to Arizona State. And then this is exactly how we met, because you came to be the commander of the Air Force ROTC. And I really began to think that we had covered it for the military students at Arizona State University until I had some veterans in my class. And then in coming to the office and being told that they didn't feel welcome, they were uncomfortable, they didn't feel people, there was just an array, and I'm gonna let you address that. And then I started to be invited to teach in the success program at the veterans, and I got a really big earful about some of the things that were missing. And so then after Captain Borden retired and went over to be the director of the Pat Tillman Center, he allowed me to run a focus group over there. And I ran and I said, "What do you need from us?" And I got a list. And again, I'm going to allow you to address that. So it became critical that I started to engage with the Pat Tillman Center, and I was very welcome there to provide my viewpoints, to see how we could collaborate. And that's something that I want to stress, the willingness of the Pat Tillman Veterans Center to collaborate with faculty for the betterment of our veteran students. And so with that, I will let you share, because I'm sure they have spoken with you far more than they have spoken with me.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. And like you mentioned, the history that we have going back a few years. I was the Air Force ROTC commander here in 2016, unfortunately only for one academic year, and then Air Force had different intention for me after that, so I had to leave. But now retired myself and back and kind of following in the footsteps of what Steve Borden put in place. I'm excited to have this opportunity. And really excited too to have the opportunity to synchronize and synergize the efforts between our two functions. And so I'm 100% on board with your philosophy and approach. And it's great to hear that history of how you originated it, the efforts that you're doing, because we talked in the podcast the other day on other issues, but we really hit on the need to reduce that civil military gap and figure out how do we get the faculty, the staff, the other students, and connected with the veterans, connected with the military active duty, connected with those ROTC cadets and midshipmen, because they're about to step into a world that is very new to them, that they've been preparing and training for. So bringing all that together is my dream and my vision, and I think that's a huge role that the Pat Tillman Veterans Center here plays. And it's one of my enduring objectives that I've laid out in our strategy is to bring that civil military gap together and close it so that we have better understanding, better empathy, and better collaboration across many different aspects of what we do every day. So again, very excited to be here. And if you'd like, I can kind of step into some of the questions, or how would you like to approach it from here?
I think what might be good is I'd like to give an example of some of the things that I've heard, and then I'd like you to address and on the wider expansion of how you're being able to see how we can collaborate better.
Sure, you bet.
I think it's important. And as you said, we both share the same objectives. We want the best for our students, and we want them to feel comfortable with faculty, because we all know the more comfortable a student feels, the more transparent we are, more willing to go into a conversation, the more they trust us, and therefore the more they learn. So that's probably critical. But how it came originally to my attention in class, I was teaching a large lecture hall, and there were some students in the back that were talking, and I don't even notice it anymore. It happens, and I probably may have chatted during a class too. And so, but there was some young Marine in the class, and he stood up and turned around and said, "Mrs. Brougham is talking. What is wrong with you? Be respectful." And I was like, whoa. I mean, it even took me back. I will tell you, the students stopped talking, and I would do whatever a Marine told me to do too, I think. But anyway, and then I asked him after class, I thanked him first for doing that. But then I said, "Why did you do it?" And he said, "Because it's disrespectful. We are here to learn, and I'm getting tired of all this frivolous nonsense in class." And that prompted me to say, "Why don't you make an appointment with me in the office? And we need to really talk, because I think there are perspectives that we need to talk. And, you know, because I don't want you to be unhappy, but the students are not going to respond well to this either." So anyway, so that really sort of opened my eyes that, you know, how we have the digital divide. Well, we have a veterans, a regular campus student divide. And that sort of made me realize that as a faculty member, I need to pay more attention to this. And that's eventually what led me to do the focus group. But anyway, that was just one example. And I have several, but I know that they talk to you. So I think it's probably, you'll be able to delve into more substance on why it's so important that we get this interconnectedness.
Yeah, so I think you hit on a pretty important point in that regard, and that's the transition from active duty service and the environment and the culture that veteran is a part of. And now they're stepping into a completely different realm that is almost invariably opposite in many aspects of what they're used to. And so there is some differentiation between experiences and so forth, in that when you get the typical enlisted member joins the military at age 18, they are in their formative years, of course, and in a parallel to what a typical college student is doing. But in this case, that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old on the military side is in a different environment. They are very structured. They are very order centric. They are very directive centric. They kind of follow the lead and develop the surrounding system and how they approach things in that space. Now there is expectation that they grow as leaders and become the replacement for those that push on and retire afterwards. So there is a grooming of sorts, but it's a grooming internal to a culture that is very dedicated to structure and knowing your place and understanding the differences between ranks and having professional respect. And I think that's an aspect of what you saw in that Marine veteran that was now placed into an environment that is completely different, where those scopes and bounds are much looser. And so when they make that transition, it's going to be hard for them because they've come from something that they acquired in their formative years, and now they're put into a place where now they are more experienced, they're older, and I've mentioned before, I think in our conversations, that the average age of our student veteran here at ASU and our population of approximately 10,500, both immersion and online, their average age is a little over 30 years old. And so that's a stark contrast to the average age of the typical college student in that 18 to 20 something year range. So when you have an 8 to 10 year difference, we all know that we learned a lot between age 22 and probably 30 plus. I know I did. And so when you come in with that experience set, and you're now thrust into this different environment, you're seeing some very different approaches and different thoughts and different cultures and different perspectives. And so one of the things that I encourage, and I actually captured this in a lecture that we give to the online students through ASU 42, that program, is I really hit home the need to be resilient and a little more empathetic and understanding, because you're going to be a minority as a student veteran coming in here, because by far and large, there's a lot more civilian students and faculty and staff that do not have the service experience. So you're coming in as a minority into an environment where you have to kind of figure out how to adapt. And so that puts a lot of pressure on them. I'll add one other thing too, is the transition brings different experiences and different requirements for these student veterans, because again, as I mentioned, the average age is a little over 30. A lot of them have families already. A lot of them have careers that they've actually started already and are doing them while they're going to school. So those added variables can really make for a complex mix of things that they have to deal with that the typical college student just doesn't, by and large. And so that is an interesting dynamic to see in action. And I think you've had some really good experiences in your time where you've had the Fast 410 class and the other activities surrounding that, where you've seen that first and foremost happen. And it is quite a sight to see. And so the intent, or one of the intents of the Pat Tillman Veterans Center in that case, is we are here to help that transition and create what we deem a success culture for them to come in, anywhere from the recruitment stage through their academic life cycle, semester in, semester out, until the end when they graduate. And then if they need help getting a career position, we want to be there with them every step of the way in terms of how we support and facilitate their needs. And I think that has paid off big dividends in the time that the Tillman Center has been in place. And I really want to kind of level that up and expand it as much as possible.
I think you explained something for me that makes a lot of sense as a faculty member. One of the things that I learned in the focus group is, because, every faculty member has office hours. You can certainly come and talk to a faculty member during that time. But in the focus group, they said, no, we really, we feel like you need to outreach us and say it's okay for us to come to the office. And you just explained it, because really culturally, you don't just go into your commanding officer's office and say, can we have a chat and have some coffee? That's not going to happen. And I would imagine most individuals would prefer not to be called into the commander's office. So for us as faculty, it seems that if we do notice an uncomfortable situation, it's probably important for us to reiterate, yes, these are office hours. You're welcome to come, bring whatever you want to talk about, and we can meet and have a meaningful discussion. I even notice with emails that I get from a lot of my veteran students, they will also start off ma'am, and I feel so old. But it's very formally, and then I write back, and it's a respectful email, but it's not as formal as their email. And I think it comes as a surprise to them. And I think you did a good explanation of why. And certainly the experiences that many of them have, a lot of us are not able to relate to, because we've not been in a war zone. We've not been in a situation where we've had to be hyper vigilant all of the time. And then to go from that kind of a scenario then to a place where, students are really laid back, from their perspective, that they're laid back. And so I really appreciate that, because I think that's a good guide for any faculty to remember, that if you see someone that is a veteran. And I will sometimes, I don't ask in class if I have any veterans, because I did that once, and then I had 3 veterans come and tell me I embarrassed them. So I don't do that anymore. But I try to let people know that if you have any interesting circumstances, I would really like to know about it. And then I seem to have them come up and will tell me they're a veteran, and I'll say, oh, what service were you in? And I apologize for having been a member of the Army, to my Air Force and Navy veterans. But I always quickly add that I have a cousin that's a retired Air Force colonel, and I had a son in the Navy. So it sort of, I think, exonerates me.
Yeah, you got the joint flavor there, all the services.
Yep. So yes. So anyway, one of the things that I wanted to ask, though, from your perspective, what is some of the best things that, especially for my 410 class, but for faculty at large, what are really some of the best items that we can do to be supportive to the Pat Tillman Center, and of course, as a product to the veterans that are in our classes?
Yeah, so great question, and I appreciate the sincerity and the thought to put to it. One thing I'd like to make a pitch for is my team that works outreach and engagement here, Michelle Leposki and Sean Bonzif, within the Pat Tillman Veterans Center. They offer a course that is quite good, called the Proving Grounds, which they give free to any organization that is within the ASU enterprise or even out. They've done a few of those in the local community, where they walk through a program of education and say, both of them are veterans, and what they do is lay out on the table, hey, here's the typical veteran that you're gonna come in contact with in the academic environment. Here's how they think, here's how they approach things, here's what they have expectations for, sometimes a little bit disconnected from reality because of what we talked about. And so here is their example, and here's is kind of what they do, think, and feel. And so that has received rave reviews from all the organizations that have received that, because it has given them a perspective many of them, of course, not having been veterans in the military, had no idea what to expect and no idea how to handle certain circumstances. And so I really want to encourage folks that are interested in reach out to us if you'd like us to organize that for you, and they'll gladly do it. They do a fantastic job with it. Also, to your question as well, sometimes we tend to label all veterans in kind of one bucket, and that they're the typical infantryman that's been out in the field and fought a war and had a variety of issues and things of that nature associated with it. Could be post-traumatic stress, a variety of other issues. Yes, there is a subset of military veterans that have those circumstances, and you will see some of them in the classes here at ASU. It's not a large number. It's a small subset of that category. By and large, most of the veterans, especially when you talk about all the service components, and I'll even throw a bone to my friends in the Coast Guard, is they have different experiences, and sometimes they'll do 4 years or whatever, and they haven't deployed, but they've still been a part of a military structure, a part of that military organization in those units. So it's not a kind of one size fits all. It's a reflection of our society, the people that come into these military organizations in these service branches. And so you kind of have to look at them each a little bit different. There are some underlying kind of common trends, and we talked a little bit about those in the previous question, but don't label them one thing that you have a kind of a bias or a perspective or a vision of based on something else. And so what I would encourage in that case is if you do want to dig a little bit more and understand them a little bit more, have that one-on-one chat like you do, which I highly encourage and I'm happy to see. And so when a faculty member is having that conversation, they can kind of peel the onion back a little bit and understand a little bit more about, hey, this service member or this active duty now veteran has some different experience sets that maybe me as faculty who doesn't have that connection never even realized. And so that is really critical, I think, and I'm excited to hear when a faculty member will offer them that conversation. That said, there are a lot of veterans, and I've already crossed paths with several of them since I've been here, since June of this year. They don't want anything to do with any of that structure. They don't want anything to do with that organization. They don't like hierarchies anymore. They're almost kind of that hey, I did my time and I'm out of there, and I don't want to be a part of any more of that. I want to just kind of be my free floating self and get out of that. So you'll see some of them, and I would say it's a larger number than you probably expect, that just want to kind of carve out their little niche in their space and be quiet and move on with their lives. And they don't even want to make a reference to, hey, I served, or these were my experience sets. So I say all that because we just want to be careful about the label that we put on them, and that they are a reflection of society. They come from different backgrounds. They have different experience sets. And even when they get into the military and serve in these branches of the services, they have different experience sets. And so the more you can kind of dig into that and peel those onions back and understand it, the better. And I think that will really help kind of bring that civil military gap a lot closer in that regard.
I think that you had made some very good points, and I have two illustrations of your point. One, I did have a veteran, as you said, very different experiences, very different, who was experiencing PTSD, came to me and said, I need you to work with me on this. And I admire him for coming and telling me that. And so what I did was I allowed him the flexibility of handing his assignments in whenever he felt he could do it without being stressed. because he said if he stresses, he can't do anything, and he was not of any value to his family. And I'm certainly not going to put any student, regardless of whether they're veterans or not, in that situation where they're starting to feel valueless. And so, and he did amazing work, but he was able to do it on his own timetable. And I had no issue with that. And then the other one that you put about everybody being mixed in difference, I learned that in my own family, because as a military family, Bill was an officer. And when Sean decided to go into the Navy, he opted to enlist. He had a good reason for enlisting, and that was what he wanted to do. The conversations that went on, you would think that neither of us had anything in the military. And Sean would always be saying, but Dad, it's different. You don't understand. I take orders, you gave orders. Yeah. And so I can imagine when you're looking out at 400 students and you have some veterans, you can't just put them all together and say, okay, now we're gonna work this way, because I don't care what branch you were in, I don't care what level, and I don't care where you went. You know, being stationed in Hawaii might be a little bit different than being stationed in Afghanistan.
No doubt about that. So yeah, so many different unique experience sets really make it dynamic what you get out of that veteran. And so you're going to get a unique aspect of a lot of things when you interact with them. And so I'm so encouraged by what I see across the ASU campuses, the willingness to want to talk, to collaborate, to interact. And so that's not everywhere. And so it's really a military supportive university here. And I don't mean that in the sense is that, hey, everybody on the campus wants to go bomb whatever country. It's more of the supportive aspect of we respect what they've done. We want to learn more about it, and we want to help them make that transition from the military life to civilian life. And the programs we have in place that are augmented with the Veterans Administration and a variety of other veteran support organizations and so forth. I will say the VA and a lot of those entities take a lot of face shots. Some of it's warranted because of bureaucratic processes and things of that nature. But my last 3 years in active duty, I spent a lot of time traveling internationally, working security cooperation issues with a variety of counterparts in foreign militaries. And in particular, I was always struck when I worked with the Five Eye community, the Brits, the Australians, the Canadians, and the Kiwis. Invariably, every conversation I had with them was usually with a beer in a pub somewhere, and we eventually got talking about how each country supports their veteran population. And across the board, all those partners were extremely jealous of what the U.S. has in its processes and its activities and its support structures that we put out there to help our veteran population. And so it's not even close in those other countries from what they were communicating to me. So we have a lot of good things in place, and they're mirrored here at ASU. The Pat Tillman Veterans Center is just one element of that. It's a key cog in that machine, but across the enterprise, be it administrative support, be it the faculty, you name it, it is very strong. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to come back here, because that presence is here. We can make it better. We can level it up. And there's a lot of things that we have on our plans here at the Tillman Center to do that. But it won't be just us doing it. It takes a federated approach, which I'm encouraged to see a lot of willingness to do that.
I think collaboration is probably always important, and the opportunity to communicate and have transparency with each other, because we all have different avenues that we need to work with the students. And certainly whatever course we're teaching, we have our own style and we have our own expertise. So I think that's why it's so important for us to dialogue with one another. And this leads me to talk about the importance of salute to service. And ASU, I think, does an amazing job with salute to service. You know, I had a couple of years ago the opportunity to put together one of the programs, and I was amazed with talking with people. And I mean, people, faculty, administration, students, they put their heart and soul into the honoring during salute to service. And I may be a little bit biased, but I think KSU does probably one of the best jobs with salute to service, and everybody, it seems, to get excited about it. So I'd like for you to address, you know, why so?
Yeah. So I'm in agreement with you. It is a fantastic series of events that's usually centered on the 11 November Veterans Day holiday. And I was part of the one in 2016 timeframe when I was here for that time. Participated in some of the events and a little bit of the planning, but I didn't have the full scope of everything. I'm learning that now, of course, in the Pat Tillman director role, and seeing the vast amount of desire and energy associated with putting something together that does exactly what you just talked about, honoring service above self. And so the one thing that I'm excited about for this year's version, even though we've had our challenges with COVID-19 and the impacts of limiting the large gatherings and so forth, is that the steering committee has decided to expand kind of the scope of this effort and the recognition. And so now it's a salute to service through a variety of other things, not just military service, but it could be first responders, medical providers, teachers, anyone that's done leadership or mentorship, folks across the ASU enterprise that are currently here, or even alumni or others that have expanded and spread their wings and gone on other places, giving them that recognition and that due of, you've done something above all else and sacrificed to do service before self. And so we want to recognize as much of that as possible, still keeping a lot of that military and that veteran theme as well. So with the events this year, it'll be the 5th through the 19th of November. You're going to see a little bit more of an expanded scope in that regard. And unfortunately, we don't have the availability of the football game, which is usually that signature event. There will be football, but it just won't have folks in the stands. So what we've elected to do is set up a virtual concert, which is going to be on the 8th of November. And I'm excited for this. Not necessarily, the band will be great. It's going to be the Gin Blossoms, and they're going to play roughly a 35-minute set virtually.
Very nice.
Yeah, but before and after that concert event that's broadcast, we're going to have a series of recognition videos that highlight service before self, and it'll encompass all those categories that I mentioned. And a lot of the colleges are pitching in, and a lot of other organizations are jumping on that bandwagon to show recognition of all those service aspects, which I think is really going to resonate. So that'll get broadcast via a variety of platforms on the internet and get pushed out there. But it'll really kind of be that signature event that drives that couple of weeks associated with it, leading up to that date and after, up through the 19th. There'll be a series of other events, which, like you recollected and have been a part of. There'll be some virtual forums. There'll be some other recognition type activities. And so we've got a lot of stuff kind of strung through that 2-week period. And to your point, it resonates with the campus and the other campuses, all of them across the board here in the Valley. But it'll also resonate in the local community. And what we really want to do as well is kind of energize the alumni, energize those that have gone on and done things and are around the globe. So we think it is kind of a global event now as to what Salute to Service has evolved to, centered on the ASU campus and driven by the energy and the creativity and the desire to support a lot of people that do great things. And so excited to see what comes of it here and see where it goes in the coming years as we move forward.
I'm very excited that so many people are being honored, because we really do have so many individuals that went above. And so that's really good. So I want to acknowledge and thank you publicly for participating in doing the lectures for my class.
You bet.
And I've gotten good feedback, so better feedback for you than for me. Anyway, and I hope you'll always include me as plans move forward, because it's very important to me that we are able to continue our collaboration. I think it strengthens my course, and I think it helps unite the students together. And so, but I wanted to see if there was anything else that you felt we should be doing to help increase dialogue with our students, with the students themselves, either by an assignment or just giving them a chance to dialogue with each other. What suggestions would you have? And I'm really looking for more input for my 410 class, but I'm sure it goes to other classes.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'll harken back to something you brought up earlier when you were in the formative stages of the efforts that you've done so well with here. Is I love the idea of focus groups where you can pull a nice example set of people from a demographic, and again, each of them has their unique niche and perspective on things, but just bringing that group together and forming a panel of sorts where you can give the opportunity for those that have not been military veterans to ask them questions and get their perspectives. In the last couple of months, I've sat on a couple of panels that other organizations have set up, and it's always fascinating for me as if I'm a panel member to get some of the questions that I do, and I'm always curious as to what drives those questions. You know, why are they thinking that way? What is their perspective, and what shapes that? And but I'm also encouraged when I hear those questions that they want to know. And so I'm very happy to offer my opinion for what it's worth. And sometimes it may surprise them a little bit. Sometimes it's things that they expect. But when you have those dialogues and you have them consistently and you encourage that kind of openness, it serves two purposes. One, it's great for the folks that are veterans to offer their perspective. And allows them to open up, but it also gives the civilian side that ability to understand and empathize with them. So I love the idea of kind of those forums and focus group and panel type things, and we'll encourage seeing more of those.
Okay. Well, then we will work on it. Anyway, thank you so much. I think you provided for us information on the Pat Tillman Veterans Center. And I think you helped open doors for us to think and reflect on what we may be able to do to encourage our students to feel more at home with one another, which I think is important for the learning process. So anyway, thank you for your time so much today. As always, I enjoy chatting with you. So
You bet,
thank
Jennifer.
you so much.
Thank you. Much appreciated. We'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
ASU will celebrate Salute to Service 2020 from November 5 to 19. For more information and a list of events, including a special virtual concert from the Gin Blossoms, scheduled for Sunday, November 8 from 7 to 8 p.m., visit veterans.asu.edu/salute-service. If you would like to connect with today's podcast guests, please email the following: m.brougham, that's BROUGHAM, @asu.edu for Jennifer Brougham. JGUIMARI @asu.edu for Jeff Guimarin. You may also follow the Pat Tillman Veterans Center on Twitter using @SunDevilVets. Connect with us and get access to all of our podcasts by visiting thesanfordschool.asu.edu/podcast, where you will also find links to all of our social media channels. This conversation has come to an end, but our work here continues.